So they say knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. So welcome to Nexus. Now, this is obviously the second episode of Nexus, and Nexus, as you guys know, is an interconnected hive mind of knowledge and basically experience, which we bring together in order to share with you guys the physical application of the things that we have learned, but also with the goal so that you can, have some physical things that you guys can take and apply and move forward into this world. And as I've said, I will be talking to leaders, economists, like all sorts of people to bring it together in a cohesive system so that we can share with you guys for free, and you guys can just basically leverage this and apply it into your lives. Now, as I've said to you guys, Nexus is basically a hive mind of the young leaders of the world and entrepreneurs specifically driving change. And who drives change better than the people that I have here today on the South African perspective than Tumi, Siko, and Mason. I have tried to pronounce Mason's surname, but I will keep it to Shrey. So Tumi, guys, welcome to Nexus. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you for having us,
For
bro.
sure.
So guys, basically, I want to start this whole conversation at a point. I literally wanted to be as organic as we can have it, and not really, scripted to a T where we talk about things, but I really want us to channel through the things that are very, very important on the perspective of things that are happening in the world and, lessons that you guys have been able to learn and, from the physical experience and from making certain decisions, which has allowed you guys to obviously move and operate and make the decisions that you guys have been able to make to reach the points of what you guys are doing right now, right? I mean, they always say that it's the sum amount of our decisions, the sum total amount of our decisions that allows us to maneuver through the world and learn certain things about the world, learn about yourself, etc., right? So that's what we're going to get into here today. Now, I do have obviously a fair few kind of questions structured, which I want to basically just, get the most nuggets out of these two here today because they have a world full of knowledge embedded in their brains. So guys, specifically, I want to touch on this first topic here, which is leadership, right? Leadership in general, because I've been seeing you've been putting up a lot of stuff about leadership, and you guys also have a podcast, which you guys do together. And Tumi also has this 1% podcast, which I've been listening to. It's been really good to
Shout out, bro.
Yeah, which has been really good, man. I mean, like, I always love listening to different perspectives, like from people in general. For us to, you can never just be one track minded. You have to be able to be open minded to listen, right, and to be able to share and do those things. So my question around leadership is that we are seeing everything that's happening in South Africa specifically. We're going to start here because I believe charity, quote unquote, giving back starts at home.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your guys' perspective on that is, but this is the reason why I decided to do Nexus in general, is because I had this thing that was deeply inside of me, right? So this desire to share more with the world of the things that I have been able to study, the people that we've been able to work with, but also get other credible players on, like I've said in the beginning, that are killing it in their fields. So leadership, let's start there from a perspective. What are, like, we'll start with Tumi, like, what is your whole view around like leadership? And let's start with South Africa as a perspective. Like, because I hear this a lot from people. I hear things because I'm on calls with people from all around the world, but also giving the South African perspective. What are we lacking at this moment? What do we need in a leader or in real leaders? This does not have to be the president, but this could be someone that is driving a good movement or a movement for change. What does that look like for you?
I think, firstly, like with the leaders, we need, number one, authentic people, right? I think to be a leader, you have to be authentic, and there's a certain vision you have to believe in, whatever the vision it is that you have, right? So we need more people to just fully back themselves and have a vision and believe that it's possible, whatever it is their vision is. Because I think a lot of young people don't really believe that things are possible. A lot of people are skeptical. A lot of people have doubt. Also, especially with some of like our older leadership, there's a lot of a disconnect. And right now, I believe what needs to happen is that just more young people with a good vision just need to step up and lead the way, and not look for too much backing, just to trust themselves to go. And eventually, and that's what leadership is about. Leadership is about you walking the way in whatever vision you believe in. And when people see that whatever you're doing is making a change, and then that's when people will follow.
Yeah.
So number one, it's just about building people to believe in themselves. First thing, I think that's the first thing that comes with being a leader. You need to believe in yourself and believe in whatever it is that
it all starts essentially with a belief, right, in our minds about a certain something.
100%.
So what would you say, Mason?
So for me, the topic of leadership literally would start with a why. Why would you do anything, right? Because when we start with that why, it means whatever decision you make from there, you're willing to stand on it and you're willing to stand on it fully. So that's where the accountability part comes in. A lot of the times, what I've noticed in South Africa is a high lack of accountability. The being able to like point a finger, be like, no, that person, but not really seeing it for yourself. And for many years, I couldn't see it for myself as well. So that's a trend that I started noticing a lot in South Africa. A lot of people can see it for someone else, but not themselves. So once you start knowing what drives you, start developing that vision, and then seeing it for yourself, that's when you can start taking the first steps. Because I remember reading a book that spoke about, in order to be a great leader, you need to be a great follower. So also being able to set an example. At some point, you can see where, I'd say in a South African context, you can see where the country's heading. You have to make a decision to be like, are you going to go in that direction or are you going to go the path less traveled? But being able to go the path less traveled means you're going to blaze your own path. You're going to create something that's no one's ever seen before. You're going to come with a different vibe. But it all starts with being yourself, as Tumi said, being authentic and willing to stand on being that person that sits themselves apart. So I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of wanting to be accepted by the group and the crowd that stops people from actually stepping into leadership positions where, like I said, they see it for other people, but not themselves. I remember when the switched for me, I saw other leaders and I was like, nah, man, there's nothing really different. I just have to bet on myself. So that's the key thing, betting on yourself.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, so there's this one saying, I kind of live by it. It's that no one wants to, basically, actually, everyone wants to be king or chief, but no one wants to play Indian. So in order to be king, you have to understand how to play Indian, like kind of like the situation where you have to understand that there are certain things that you have to do. So because if you reach the level of being king, because like everyone wants it, but they don't want to do the work. That's also another way to put it.
100%.
And the way you do the work is obviously once you engage with the work, whatever that work looks like on the day-to-day activities, it's like there are some things that you will have to master first in order for you to sit on whatever throne you want to sit on, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of that perspective here. But that you said something really important there, and I will latch it on to my next question. So we're going to start with Tumi specifically just to kind of like get this perspective on this, is that like I get this a lot from people because obviously we've met through fitness and stuff, but I get this a lot from people just on an everyday perspective of work and fitness. It doesn't matter which one it is. Like they ask me the question of like, Jay, like what drives you? How can you go and you get up and you work out, you work all the time? I mean, when do you have fun, et cetera, like, but what drives you to consistently yourself, right? What drives you guys to consistently get up, motivated to go do a thing, right? The motivation aspect is somewhat there, but there are things after that you don't, obviously we don't live on motivation, right? It's an aspect of it, but what is it specifically that drives you? What allows you to get up and keep doing what you're doing?
Well, obviously at the beginning, it was the vision, right? The vision was driving me and I had to get motivation. Well, whatever the motivation was for me, I had to find something that motivates me in order to make that vision come true, right? See it in my head and say, okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish and this is why I'm trying to accomplish it, right? And this is where I'm going to get the energy from. This is where I'm going to source the energy to get motivated and whatnot. But eventually, when you do that long enough, motivation fades, right? And that's where now, like Mason was saying, you need to find your why. Because when you have a why, you will do what you need to do regardless of whatever circumstances are going to happen around you. Because what happens if you do something long enough, eventually the motivation dies. And now that's when the excuses start coming in and stuff. So I always say that I'm not a person that's driven by motivation anymore. I'm just driven by my vision and I'm driven by my why. And I'm also driven by the fact that I think I would hate to live a life where I have to look back and say, damn, I did not go hard. I would hate to live a life where I say I didn't fulfill my purpose and I didn't fulfill my desires. And I'm at a place in my life where what moves me, right? What keeps me alive is me constantly chasing that next thing. If I'm not chasing the next thing, then I get depressed, you know? So for me, it's not a case of like, I don't need much more. Like I said, I don't function off motivation anymore. I don't need much motivation anymore to get out of bed and go do what I got to do. I know why I'm doing what I got to do, even in order to have the life that I want to have, right? You always ask people, I say, yo, what do you want out of life? I want blah, 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 blah. I say, okay, why are you not going for it? Why do you need to be motivated? If you say you want to sit on this throne, that's reason enough for you to get up in the morning. Why are you still trying to search for motivation? Why are you in bed and you're looking for this reason? Oh my God, I want to get out of bed. No, the reason to get out of bed is that throne I want to sit on, the one you're speaking about. That is the motivation. The vision is the motivation. And eventually when you learn the game long enough, you actually learn that motivation is temporary. And that's when you develop what? You develop the discipline. So right now, it's just discipline and my vision. There's not much motivation there. But on those days, I do have motivation. Obviously, those are your best days where you wake up, you're feeling like, wow. But right, I don't count my wow days. I count my days when I don't feel like getting SHIT done. That's when I say, okay, who am I then? That's what defines me. So in terms of like what drives me, it's just to live a life of purpose and just to get better every day. And that's why we have the Top 1% podcast and the Young and Driven podcast, because it's just about getting better every day, every day, every day. If you're trying to be better than yesterday, you actually don't need much to drive you, because naturally, if you went that hard yesterday, next day you're going to go better, and then next day you're going to go better. And then ultimately, But discipline is the driver now for me.
So I'll ask you a different question. I'll phrase that different. If discipline is the driver there, like, how does someone, because their discipline, I believe discipline is the keys in order to unlock certain things in your life. So I've said this before, that discipline unlocks, that when you unlock discipline, it unlocks consistency. When you unlock consistency, it unlocks creativity. So there's a little relationship there, and a specific, like, the way that it happens. Maybe it happens differently, okay? But how do you view discipline? What is the role of discipline in your life? How do you view it?
So I'll give it in a perspective of a little story, right? So majority of my life coming up, I do what I want when I want it, never really having discipline. Even when I started training at 17, there wasn't really any discipline. So I noticed that the lack of discipline provided lack of results, right? So at some point as an individual, you have to sit down and do self-introspection to be like, the parts where I was disciplined, even if it was for a week, what were the results that I got? And how did I feel about myself? The biggest thing, how did I feel about myself, right? Then from there, you take that and you look at the rest of your life. Like tomorrow, am I going to be disciplined in terms of going to the gym? You do that over about a week, 2 weeks, you start to see your self-esteem starts to grow. Because most of the years when I was undisciplined, I had low self-esteem. And the years where I became disciplined, that's when my self-esteem shot up. But the biggest driving force that drove me to being a lot more disciplined was when I needed to help someone else other than myself. So it wasn't about me. So the way I view discipline is I always take myself out of the equation. I say, yo, if it's just about me, it's easy for me to come up with an excuse like, nah, I'll do it later. Nah, I'll do this tomorrow. But when I think about someone else, how someone else could benefit, like the discipline of actually just coming here and doing this podcast, I don't feel my best. I had an allergic reaction, but I was like, I made a commitment to serve people in terms of what I know, my experiences. So the discipline is no matter how I feel, no matter what I'm going through, still show up. And that really affects the rest of your life in terms of how you view things, the things that you need to get done. And if you stack those little disciplines every day, if you look back over a year, you're a completely different beast. I remember I experienced a lot of loss when my life was undisciplined, wasting money. My body wasn't the way it wanted to. My life didn't look the way I wanted it to. I had this vision, but the lack of discipline, just time passes either way. So you choose. You'll wake up one day and be like, I've lived X amount of years undisciplined. Let me just try a disciplined life. And it's just small practices every day that build up, and that becomes your new normal. So if you build one discipline, I always say stack your disciplines. You build one discipline, then once you master that one discipline, you take it to the next one. Then you master that, then you take it to the next one. Yeah. Once you've stacked that over a year's period, you're a completely different person. where then people look at me and do me and see us going to the gym, doing what we have to do, and they think, it's easy for you guys. No, it's the stacking of the disciplines over years where it now seems effortless.
Yeah, it becomes normalized.
Yeah.
Right? In that perspective and how you put it. So that's an interesting perspective on like if you stack, whatever you stack, it's also compounding interest, right?
Yeah.
100%.
So it's like when you master a certain something or you understand a certain skill or leverage, and we're going to talk about leverage here, Wilson, because I saw you posted it on your story recently.
Oh, right, 100%.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that now, but it's like when you stack it and you understand why you're doing the action. So I always also bring it back to this because I needed this, what I solved in my life first, or the equation and how that happened is like, I needed to solve like being fit for sport essentially, and that kind of rolled over to different things. But it then was I'd be able to understand, okay, I mastered or mastering fitness or health and wellness, whatever that might look like. But then that's one discipline, right? Because if a lot of things I see with the people and stuff that I work with and the companies that I work with, a lot of them have mastered money or something, or but they haven't mastered the other, the physical discipline. But it's usually the other way around. Like people want money, but they don't want to change their behaviors and their actions towards actually acquiring, gaining the skill sets, doing the actions on an everyday perspective that allows them to move closer to that person that they're bound to become. So that kind of locks into having discipline in different realms and spectrums of your life, right? It rolls over because once you learn one, you then have to be able to understand that there's a correlating relationship between money, health, wellness, spirituality, all these things that gives you this wholesome kind of view of things. I don't know.
Makes sense, 100%, yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of leads me to this question of the self. I don't know if you guys really have a lot of self-introspection.
We're deep into that.
Okay, so that's great. So the question of the self and self-introspection is like, there's people that call it shadow work, essentially, kind of like looking into terms of the ego and the roles that it plays in the decisions that we make. But I want to bring it back down to your dark side, okay? So one thing I really grabbed my hands around and could really start to deeply understand is that David Goggins has this one thing where he says, stay hard, right? Now, you have to, obviously, if you understand his whole philosophy and his whole message is like, once we learn the importance of, number one, dark energy and your dark side, being able to truthfully lean into it and being able to experience it, and then we will only be able to truthfully understand what it means to be in the light. So my question here is framing it in this way is that how do you guys view the importance of understanding your dark side? I mean, like, what role does that play in your life?
I'm gonna say this, right? When you say your dark side, I think it's different for everybody, right? Because I think there's certain individuals where they don't really tap into their dark side because they don't really have much of a dark side. Like some people, it's like me. I know I've got one, right? Where I play with my ego. I go into that dark place and I use that to motivate me and stuff. But I think for someone else, you probably just have people that are just chill. They don't, I'm not sure if everyone has a dark side. You think everyone has a dark side?
Everyone does. They just won't say it.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Because from a perspective of there's good, there's evil in this world, which we get taught, right? So there's duality with things. So meaning that if we look in terms of like the dark side, every little stories, all these little movies that people show us, right? There's kind of this relationship of this character of good and evil. So we all get trained in a perspective of thinking in terms of, okay, this is the difference between right and wrong. However, if I lean towards something that is deemed ethical, or if I lean towards something that I have been trained on that's deemed ethical, so to give you a broader understanding, if a lady is a dancer, right, it might be normal for that person to be a dancer or some artist or some form, which they have gotten accustomed to it, which whether that is deemed wrong or dark, essentially, that's an opinion and a perspective, right? Because in some sort of way, that lady is still serving, okay? In some sort of, it's an entertainment perspective. But my whole thing around this is that, yes, I believe everyone has a dark side because everyone, there's like I said, there's duality. Everyone has to, if you don't learn how to lean into the dark side, you don't learn and experience it, because there is something called, in my perspective, the underworld. Okay, so
But do you think you have to lean into your dark side? Because my thing is this, right? My thing earlier on when you're speaking about introspection, I liked that. I think it's more about knowing yourself. So you know that, okay, I've got this dark side where I'm this person, but let me focus on the light side. I think
to add to your knowledge, in my perspective, in order to appreciate that light, right, in order to become a beacon of light to people, one has to understand the relationship of the other side, right? So if you've never been there and all of a sudden you're thrown into the deep end and these things come across your path, like these shiny objects or things that might distract you or take you away from the vision and the thing that you're working on, that might be leaning towards it. So for an example, I'll give you another example. Like this might be an example of light energy, like water, right? Mm-hmm. And another example might be an energy drink, which could be dark energy, because an energy drink is not natural, but it helps you push, it helps you lean. So those are kind of like, two perspectives, because I know I'm bad with an energy drink, okay? Like I'll have it a lot, but it's something that I've made a little totem in my life that I'm like, I can have this. Like I understand the relationship, caffeine this much, I shouldn't take more than this. But I also do understand that I've been able to also pick my poison, right? Because my whole thing, I'm gonna allow you to add to this now, is that in order to really truly appreciate the light or to be a beacon for others, like I said, is to be able to understand what it is to be like on the other side. Because if you've never been there or if you've never drowned, like you won't truly appreciate what it feels like to swim, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So I was going to say, let's look at it as like the situation with Kobe Bryant, right? He would talk about Mamba mentality, and every kind of connotation that comes around Mamba mentality is tapping into your dark side.
Yeah.
Where off the court, phenomenal father. But when he's on the court, he taps into that mode, that dark energy where it's like,
killer.
I remember he said, when we're on the court, don't touch me, it's just go mode. For that, however long a basketball game is, then once he gets off that stage, because you're performing, that's when he then comes back to the light, where he's like, he's such a fun dad, always around. So I think I've kind of experienced that, where a lot of the times when I'm in my quote unquote go mode, right, I just have this thing about me where people think I'm arrogant, but they've never really spoken to me when I'm like that, right? You'll just see me sitting and you'll think I'm mad, but in my head, there's plans and things being formulated and I'm really deep within myself. But then they'd come to me and be like, and we have an interaction. They're like, "Oh, you're actually such a nice guy."
You're actually a nice. I've had that a lot happen. I think that happens to you.
It's like,
that
even in the gym when you're pushing a new PR, you're tapping into that thing where it's like beast mode, where you're pushing yourself, and the moment someone just distracts you a bit or taps you and takes you out of that frame, then it's like you can't really push as hard as you wanted to push. So I know I can't really speak about a lot of people, but I know for myself, there was a lot of times growing up where I tried to deny it because I didn't really understand having a dark side. People around me always made me feel like it's a bad thing to kind of have like a dark side. But when I look at periods where I really pushed and accomplished things, it was when I leaned into that energy. But every time I leaned into it over the years, I learned where my bounds were. I was like, okay, at this point, I need to stop. I need to. Otherwise, I become destructive.
Yeah. So
otherwise, I destroy relationships. Otherwise, so there's that balance.
There's like a fine line in between.
And outside of that, I appreciate the light, where it's like I spend time with people. They're like, "Oh, you're actually such a great guy. You're actually such a nice person." But what you just did, what achievement you just accomplished, is insane. How do you do that? I'm like, yo, you just have to go to a place inside of you where it's like, no excuses,
You know what I think it is, right? So the reason early on I asked, I said, does everybody have like a dark side? Because I think as people, we function differently. I don't think some people really tap into their dark side and stuff. There's some people who are really just light. I've met people, fine, maybe they do have a dark side, but some tap into it more than others. But I know personally, for me, with like my experiences in life, I'm a person that will go tap into a dark side or that place of pain, where when I'm there, it's me really just getting into a state. Yeah, that's what Tony Robbins said. He said you get into a state where I take myself to a place of pain and I use that to fuel whatever I'm gonna do, you know. And even that place, I don't really want to call it dark because sometimes I think the word dark, it almost like comes off as negative. And to me, I don't think that place is a negative place, but I'll say it's rather a deep place. You know, it's but you could actually say I understand why probably dark 100%. Like the
Kobe Bryant's trainer would talk about, when does a new day start? It starts at night in the dark.
And when you go deep, it gets dark. Yeah.
I'll go one level on this dark topic is because most of the work that I believe gets done in the dark. So, for an example, if you see the studying, the working out in the gym, no one really looks at you in the beginning, right? Or like when you don't look like anything, so then you have to do some work in the dark where no one actually is paying attention or where no one really gives a damn. So the work, whether you read a book, whether you're studying, whatever that might look like, it's you. There's no one else there.
100%.
It's you, right? And you have to do it all the time. So I believe the real work gets done in the dark and all the other things are just little, for the show, right? Whatever that might be like. So bringing it back to that perspective, it's like there are some things that I believe that we have to do in order to do the things that we can then have on the display of the product, whatever the product might be, right? So work that doesn't always look nice, like the things that doesn't always look good on Instagram or like, 100%. And people don't see that, right? That's kind of like
in the dog.
Yeah, that's exactly Kobe Bryant's trainer. He's like got a really great book. On winning. The book's called Winning, but I'm gonna lash this on to put this into the next perspective of this here is that, like, as a young entrepreneur, I've recently heard Mason's story, but I have a more background on kind of like how you came to do your things. But as a young entrepreneur, this is a very interesting question because right now I don't have a girlfriend. However, as a young entrepreneur, someone that's coming through the roots, if they are not doing six figures, etc., do you guys believe that they should be trying to find a mate? What does that look like? What does is dating even important? What does that look like? How do you guys optimize, or what does that look like?
Well, I'll say this, right? I think it also depends. It also depends if when you decide to tap in, like, okay, this is what I want to do at the time. Do you have a person you're dating or don't you? If you got a person already you're dating and that person is 100% in support of what you're doing, there's probably no reason to let go of them. But also, there's going to come a time where you need to have a conversation with that person and say, listen, this is the path I'm about to set on, right? Because they need to understand, because you go through change. Once you decide, like, yo, I'm chasing this dream, a lot of stuff changes. There's a lot of things you stop doing, and there's a lot of things you start doing, things that get you closer to that vision, right? So if you already got someone there, I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, dating. And especially, I think one of the things I believe are really, like, dope in life is if you build with someone, right? Like, if you were there when I had zero, and then I make it to, like, the 6 figures, 7 figures, 8, 9 figures, and you there, that's an amazing thing, as opposed to me, like, not having anyone make it to 9 figures and then start looking, right? But if you don't really have someone and you want to go achieve those goals, you want to go achieve those dreams, then it definitely makes sense to learn who you are. Because even the thing with dating is that a lot of people don't even know who they are. They lose themselves in their partners, right? And you think you and your partner are like one thing, but you guys are completely different people, right? And in order to learn someone else, you need to learn yourself. So how is it you're trying to figure out someone else, but you don't even know who you are? So there's a journey of soul searching, and there's a journey of learning yourself that you even need to go through personally, and even in whatever business you're doing. There's those people could be two different people, like the person you are without everything else, without your business, without your dreams and whatnot, just you as a human being, like how you feel and whatnot, and then the person you have to be in order to tap into that go mode, like Mason was saying, or that dark mode, and even when you tap into like that dark mode and stuff, I'm embracing that word dark now, is that it can cause a lot of friction if you have a partner, right? Because like I said, you go through a lot of change and you vibrate differently, and sometimes you're not as available and you're in a place where you're misunderstood. So obviously now if you have someone, now you have to explain the process, why you are like that. You have to explain, and all that stuff can slow you down. But when you are just alone, you only have one person to answer to, which is just you. So I believe if you are single and like you're chasing your dreams, you shouldn't really look for a partner. In fact, I don't believe in looking for a partner at all.
Yeah.
I think when you are doing what is right and when you are being purpose-driven, you will meet the right partner. I think anytime you try to go look for a partner or whatnot, you're bound to like find BS.
Yeah, I mean, to add to your knowledge there, it's like I have this perspective around, and we're going to talk about this. We could switch some lenses to a business lens real quick right now, but Naval Ravikant's work talks a lot about, so I've studied Naval Ravikant's work some time ago, and the introspective, or rather the way of framing that he has is basically the short-term to long-term game kind of scenario. A lot of people optimize playing short-term games, and then there are people that optimize for playing long-term games. So as an entrepreneur, I believe that you can do whatever you need to do that allows you to keep consistent with the thing that you're working on. So but what happens many times is that you get distracted if you also lean into short-term games too much. So in optimization, for what I believe is, I've had this experience before, but it's about finding someone that you can bounce mental models off of, because like all relationships is basically it's a mental model from another person and you're bouncing it off of each other. So that's kind of like it's amazing when you have that. It's also very, very hard to find. So like there's a little, I mean, like, I'm no guru on this. That's just my perspective. But I mean, like, I think at the end of the day, no one can really be a guru on this except if you have some sort of like a fantastic relationship with someone, right? Where you're able to share what you've learned with a person, which is kind of interesting because I always hear entrepreneurs kind of like, they try to live this Andrew Tate life, the framing of an Andrew Tate lifestyle, which he frames too. I mean, at the end of the day, like, along whatever is that perspective, but like there's an optimal point for someone that I believe, and that's being able to really truly share with someone what you're doing, what you're building, and then you can build, so like you said, build with each other, but that's based on sharing. It's like having a conversation where someone is actually there for you, and you're there for them, and then you guys can build together. And it's kind of like this. I'll move on to the next question, which I want to start with Mason here, is that basically a lot of people, they drive a Porsche 1911, so they date someone that's like a Porsche, right? But then the Lambo comes by, it's like, boom, and then they're like, oh, so I wonder what it's like to drive that. So that happens many times, which is normal, okay? But then you lose the 1911 because you want to go mess around with the Lambo.
The 911.
Yeah, so the 911. So then you obviously that happens, and then you're like, you reset your own little process, because I mean, whatever that might look like for you, whatever the optimization standpoint there is, if it is to build with someone, I mean, I guess that's a little puzzle we'll have to solve. So it's kind of my perspective on it. I don't know, like I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll move to the next thing. Yeah.
What in terms of
the relationship
thing
when you're kind of like entrepreneurially building, yeah.
So that's a very interesting one, right? So like you were saying, everyone has their optimum point. And a lot of the times you might want to live a certain frame where it's just you go mode, but that's not your optimum frame. Some people, they do find a relation, or they've been in a relationship and that relationship is beneficial to building out that dream. But one of the most important parts is being equally yoked. That is very important, especially if you're in a relationship building towards a specific vision, because I think there are instant adjustments that have to be made based on current circumstances building out a dream. And if that person's not willing to pivot at that given moment, sometimes it's like, oh, you need to give me a month's notice, or you need to give me 3 months notice. But when you're building out a dream and building out a vision, there are things that hit you instantly. There are challenges that start tomorrow. There are new opportunities that start tomorrow. Yeah. So being able to find someone, or not even finding someone, where you're with someone that's aligned to being able to pivot. So let's say you have dinner plans, or you have breakfast plans at 10. I get a phone call from Tumi. My purpose and my vision is I'm building out this podcast. I'm sharing and building other people based on my experiences and what I know, right? And he calls me. So I have breakfast scheduled at 10. and he calls me, yo, brother, we're shooting tomorrow at 10. Everything's confirmed. That's a pivot point now. It's when I made those reservations, that situation wasn't there. But the purpose is the bigger thing now. Whereas like, is that person willing to pivot? And they might be willing to pivot now, but for how long?
Yeah.
Right? So always bear that in mind. So even if you have a partner, bear that in mind to be like, yo, the most important thing is my purpose. If that person wants to share in that purpose, perfect. If they don't want to at some point, it's fine as well, right? But never lose your sense of purpose and never lose what drives you. Because that's what usually happens in a relationship. Usually. The ones that really go, those are rare to come by, not rare to find, rare to come by, right? So yeah, that's just my perspective on it.
Yeah, growth is a two-way street. Kind of perspective. There needs to be, it can't just come from one side, right? Which is a great way to put it. So let's quickly to wrap this conversation up. I want us to quickly just move towards a little bit more of a business lens to look at things, right? We've talked about a lot of things now, mentioning some of Naval's Ravikant's works, and I'll quote Naval here. He says basically society, society, business, and money are downstreams of technology, which in itself is a downstream of science. So science applied is the engine of humanity. Now, that's a direct quote from Naval. It's in his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Now, the reason why I put this here is because, like I said, I saw you post some things about leverage and how important it is to understand it. So I want to get you guys' perspective on this. So like I'll layer out some leverage things. So meaning like whether it's code, capital, media, people, AI, whatever that might look like. How do you guys frame it in your process? How do you see it?
I believe leverage is this, right? Leverage is the ability to see something this small and use it in a way where at the end, by the time you're done using it, that thing is now this big, right? It's basically like an example of leverage. Sometimes using what you don't really have at that moment, but what you might have access to or have a relationship with, but it's not necessarily yours, right? But you have a relationship with it to be able to better off your situation. Like, for example, leverage is the same thing. I might not have like a podcast studio. Maybe you own this podcast studio and I know you and I say, yo, bro, listen, I would like to use your studio, and I might have like a big audience. And I'll say, can I use your studio? And this, I didn't have money. Can I use your studio for free? But what I'll do is that I will market your studio for you in order for you to also like have a bigger audience to market the studio too. And then you'll also make more money and stuff. And then in that return, you making more money, and I'm also able to use your studio when I don't have money at all, but I'm still able to give you value. Yeah. You're also able to give me value, right? And that's what leverage is. Leverage is basically seeing a way out when you don't necessarily have that thing that you want, right? So it's the ability to see 20 steps ahead, and being able to turn a 1 into a 10 with just like one move. And I believe in life, if you're gonna build anything big, right? Like I said, to turn a 1 into a 10, you need to use leverage. Your greatest business people, everybody applies leverage. In order to build wealth, you have to apply leverage. In order to build a great body, you have to apply leverage. Anything that is great, somewhere in that process, there was leverage used. So I believe right now where I'm at with like my mindset, everything I do, I'm always trying to find the leverage in it. The only way it's gonna get to where you want it to go is if you use leverage. And like I said, leverage allows you to work with what you have to give you something that you don't have. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's
leverage
like an automatic lever. Once you pull it once and you can get that in a systematic way of doing it, I mean, it rolls over, right?
100%.
Yeah. So this brings me to my last two kind of framing perspectives here, or rather the question that I have here is that, so in the last 6 months, right, there's been a lot of stuff about AI. There's been a lot of stuff about the implications that it brings to the table. Now, from my perspective, I You guys know I work with tech companies and stuff in that perspective, but if we take away like the whole tech company perspective, like what are your guys' view on AI just in general? Like, have you guys looked into it? Have you watched some videos about it? How do you guys view AI?
I think Mason can answer that, and then I'll answer.
Yeah.
I'll answer after Mason.
So my view on AI, right? So I do use AI in certain aspects of my business, and I think it's a phenomenal tool. But at the end of the day, I think it's putting a lot of pressure on people to really pivot and become much more than they currently are. Because if you look at AI is replacing a lot of mundane activities. So now us as humans have to work on becoming irreplaceable in whatever field you're in. So as much as it's a great tool, it's a lot of pressure as well now. And I think the learning and implementation steps of AI are a lot faster. So now what's happening is there's so many normal activities and jobs being made redundant because of AI. So it's like, okay, when you thought you could just be a normal person, AI could replace you like this. So now you have to keep working on yourself, keep building yourself to become irreplaceable, because as much as there's AI, there's still a human aspect where the AI cannot beat. So for me, in the parts where I use AI, it's like I have to make adjustments in things where I give more of a human touch to be able to connect rather than it creates and then I have to alter it and connect. That's where I think the biggest thing where AI misses, the connection part, where it's just automating
Human
life.
element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's just automating life, but the connection part is where we have to really step up.
Yeah.
And again, become irreplaceable, become irresistant. And that now forces people to work on themselves. Because, you know, one of my mentors says you can keep whining or you can keep complaining or you can make the best out of it you possibly can. And I always viewed that. So at first I'd view AI as, oh my gosh, so many jobs are being replaced. I was like, I could whine, I could complain, or I could make the best out of this in its current phase. I don't know where AI will be in the next 6 months, in the next year. But I know I can tap into it and evolve with it so that I'm ahead of the curve. So again, having to work on myself to make sure that I don't try outpace AI, but I stay in alignment and I use it to optimize whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yeah, to add to what you said there is you can't beat technology. You just cannot. You can't fight the current. So I always tell people it's the people who are able to, number one, learn about the value about the tech. I mean, you don't have to be like this early adopter, but the people who do learn how to align themselves with the technology and learn how to utilize the technology. You could be the best pizza maker, the best fitness guy, the best e-com guy, whatever that might look like. But if you are able to take your domain expertise and you're able to learn how to become one with the tech and utilize it, those are the people that will replace the humans that don't learn how to use AI. So it's like being able to use Microsoft Word back in the day, right? If you weren't able to use that when you were applying for a job, then you'd have no leverage, right? You have no, like, so because someone else will just, what the AI essentially does, it learns faster, it builds faster, it operates, and it's now at such a humanized, or not really, like it's at just such a superhuman level right now, where it does everything faster and more accurate than humans. So it is about the human counterpart will always be there. And obviously you can, like I said, your domain expertise, you just need to learn how to align with it.
So can I add an example to that?
Yeah.
So like you said, being the best pizza maker ever, right? So who are you selling to? You're selling to other people. But now you could align with AI and leverage it to help you market and let a lot more people know that you're the best pizza maker in whatever region that you are. So increasing your client base, increasing your reach, because people will travel to whatever country you're in, and AI will help them know, help you reach more people that aren't even in your country, to let them know that I'm the person that you should come see if you want the best pizza in town. So that's where I think a more practical example of aligning and leveraging AI comes into play. Yeah.
What would you say?
My opinion on AI is this, right? I think AI is a beautiful thing. Personally, I love the invention of AI. I love where it's going, except when it comes to like making robots and stuff, right? But I'm going to say this. What I believe AI is doing is forcing humans to become more phenomenal. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much technology you put in the world, no matter how much, you cannot replace the human aspect. You cannot replace humans. Because here's the thing, right? Can can one human just live with only technology? No, humans need other humans in order for life to make sense. You have to be around other humans. So at the end of the day, the tech can't replace the human aspect. So I believe even what it's actually doing, it's forcing, even like I said, it's forcing the humans to become more phenomenal, and maybe even them. Back then, humans also created technology to make their lives easier. So it was like a double-edged sword, because the same technology you created to make your life easier is now making your life harder.
Yeah. So
100%.
the more we optimize, there is a breaking point. However, like to latch on to what you said is basically I agree with that perspective, because I've got this so many times now, if someone will send me some sort of like a cold message or someone, and they've recorded themselves with an AI tool, I'm like, I'm not watching that. Like, I can see, bro, you know, I mean,
Exactly.
like, humans aren't like stupid, like people aren't dumb. Like, and that whole human element, it's now like all this optimization is allowing us to evolve. If we don't evolve with it, like, obviously those are the humans that will perish in the process. But it's the ones that understand the relationship of evolving with it and the importance of the utilization of it in our everyday lives. Because at the end of the day, it's simply just the guys or the girls that learn about the physical application in their everyday lives. Because if it can learn faster than you, it can build faster than you, it can, like, obviously do everything faster than you, then why wouldn't you use it? I mean...
And, you know, it's like what I believe, right? Like, AI at the end of the day is just a tool. If AI is kind of replacing what you're doing, it shows that you really weren't doing much. If AI can replace what you're doing, I believe it kind of shows that you weren't doing much, right? For example, even now, there's this new trend where they're using AI to make like Drake AI songs, right? But even when you're listening to it, it still doesn't beat the original Drake, because even when you're listening to it, you can hear like there's no soul and whatever. But the song can sound cool. It does sound a bit like Drake, and I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. But the fact that Drake is so phenomenal, he connects with us on a human level. Even the way he speaks, the things he says, there is no technology that can take that away. Because even you, when you listening, you know that's not the original person. And at the end of the day, like I said, as humans, we need other humans. So I'm not trying to listen to a technology version of Drake. I want to listen to the actual guy. So even in your job, if you're good at what you're doing, right? And if I love working with you, I'm not trying to work with an AI version of you. AI is just a tool. So if AI can wipe you out completely, it means that you probably weren't pushing yourself to your actual limits.
I get your point.
And whatever you're doing was actually, it shows you were just replaceable from the beginning. And I believe as a human, you shouldn't be replaceable.
Yeah.
If you're good at what you do.
This is also quoting Naval. So some time ago, is that basically everything that you, if you can train, like if they can train you to do it, they will eventually train AI or a computer or something to do it. Because, like, look at in terms of this, all business is essentially it's a simulation between humans and machines. We use laptops. I have this laptop in front of me right now, and that like little connected process there is obviously what's happening at a rapid pace. It's just like my whole thing behind this is because I could only understand the value of AI once I could understand the value of intelligence. And this is my last point before I move to the last question here, but it's like, if you truly understand what intelligence is, if you go out and you ask any of your friends that you deem very smart, is they will tell you intelligence in some sort of information processing. And again, AI can process information faster than humans. And so at the end of the day, if that's the case, right, where do we lie? Like, what position do we take? Like, how do we learn how to actually use it? Because right now, all the companies and stuff that I work with is that all of them are the CEOs are sitting around every day, they're trying to figure out how to find an edge in this new world. So this edge could be using AI to make more money somehow. But whether you're using customer service, whether you use it to do specific like prospecting things where it's like hyper-personalized as you spoke about it, right? Those are things that you can utilize it, but it's still, a lot of people are like not really understanding the value of it, because it's about really truly understanding the value of intelligence, what role that plays in the world, and then understanding where AI fits in, like artificial intelligence, right?
And that's why, like, if you don't understand the value of AI, it's going to replace you.
Of course.
That's it.
And I
Of
think the
course.
biggest thing with CEOs is they're asking the wrong question, if I may add, if I may be so bold to add, right?
Of course.
So if you're looking at AI and trying to find a way to make, just to have an edge on how to be more profitable, I think, to my knowledge, the role of a CEO is to captain a ship in a specific way to a specific vision, which AI cannot replace, right?
Exactly.
So they can come up with probable outcomes based on data, information, breaking down information and processing it, right? But a CEO still has to lead it. They still have to cast that vision, because you will hit a milestone, but where to from there, right? So more looking at how does AI fit in building out the vision rather than being competitive, because you could have an edge now for the next year, but over 10 years, the guy that was just focused on building out this vision is number one and destroys everyone in the industry. So I think right now, because AI is evolving and adapting so fast, people are asking a lot of short-term questions. How do I just make a little more money here? How do I become a little bit more competitive here? But it's like, what are you going towards? What are you steering towards? And how does AI fit in? And looking at its projected rate of growth, how will it help speed up building out this vision and steering the ship in this direction? So once you more take it, I think you look at it over a broader spec rather than a competitive spec, that's when you'll have a full vision of how to fit AI into whatever business, whatever job, whatever thing that you're doing. Because if I have a specific job and I provide a certain level of value, all I'd be looking at is how do I use AI to optimize what I'm currently doing and what I would like to achieve over a year of being in the position that I'm in right now. So I think that's what people are asking, very short-term questions with regards to
That's
AI.
an interesting way to look at it.
And even last thing, right? And I also believe AI itself, it has its limits. Because at the end of the day, how much more can you go, like technologically? Eventually, if you go far enough, what's going to happen? You're going to want to go back to the human aspect. You're going to want to go back to the soul. Like I couldn't imagine living in a world where everything is just like tech, like a robotic. Like I would be like, F that. Can I please go to the other world where we just like normal humans without the technology aspect?
Yeah, that's my point with optimizing. There's a break point somewhere.
100%. So I believe, so I believe AI is dope and it's gonna be a tool, and I don't believe it's gonna flush out the human aspect. If anything, it might divide the world where we might have a world where it's just like very, very human and a lot of tech here, but it's not going to flush out the human aspect, because at the end of the day, the tech was made by humans. The tech is a reflection of a human. All that processing that it's doing, it's a human processing faster, right? The tech wasn't there without the humans. So at the end of the day, it goes back to the creator. The creator of the tech is the humans, and then the creator of the humans is what is God. So at the end of the day, tech comes third.
And the
God,
creator,
human tech.
The creator of the tech is the one who created the data. All it's processing is years of data from human experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it all goes back to human. It can't,
to have that question with someone that doesn't have a God-fear perspective is very interesting, but we'll leave that for another time. You'll see how that flows. I've had that conversation before.
That's another deep topic. 100%.
So let's wrap this up, guys. So basically, what I'm gonna do right now is, this is a fun round. I want you guys to just like hip fire. It's like cowboy style. Just gonna hip fire. So there are 10 things I have here. We'll split it up 5-5. And then basically we'll start with Toomey and then we'll move to Mason. So if I say like the word, so if I say water bottle or whatever, you say the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, you guys good? You guys ready?
100%.
All right, so 5-5, right? Okay, so first one here we have Andrew Tate.
Leader.
Interesting. Network marketing.
Leverage.
AI.
Tech.
Barbie.
Pink.
Okay, alcohol.
Bad.
Mindset.
Everything.
Sex.
Power.
Elon Musk.
Visionary.
Billionaire.
Limitless.
Spirituality.
Essence.
That was kind of good. I like those. I like those. Sweet guys. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. We'd love to do this sometime in the future again. If you guys want to,
No, 100%, bro.
roll it again.
Anytime you're ready to go, we're ready to go, bro.
Yeah, it was super fun talking to you guys, and thank you guys for tuning in. I want to wrap this up in saying that if you guys have enjoyed this, do go and see their work. I will leave all of the links for their work and the things that they are involved with, their podcast and everything that they do. It's been really getting a lot of traction, so go and check it out. It will be in the description down below. Also, do leave a like on this video if you've enjoyed it. Leave a comment in the comment section down below on who you guys would want me to sit down with, have this high-level style of conversation, Nexus style, and then we'll do it. But without further ado, guys, take what we've discussed here, and as I've always say, take it, go out into this world, go apply it, and do something great for somebody today. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Cool, you know the vibes.